Hey everyone, welcome to another Thursday live. This is going to be a bit of a tradition. We're going to try and go live every Thursday on these platforms and others. Today I'm trying different platforms. Instagram is a pain to get right, so I'm using other platforms. So hopefully people will see this and let me know if you're watching it, if you enjoy it, if you like these live streams. Listen, today I wanted to talk about fasting. And why do I want to talk about fasting? I think there's a couple of high profile health influencers, some of whom have credentials, some of whom don't. So Peter Attia is the one I'm thinking about. Rhonda Patrick. These are both, scientists. Peter is also a medical doctor, and he's also very famous. Written a very famous book recently, Outlive. So they have, both of those people, Rhonda Patrick and Peter Attia, were previously very pro fasting. They used fasting a lot. In fact, that's one of the reasons that both of them got famous. And they have since backed off. They since say that they don't fast as much. And so I just wanted to unpack this a little bit because unfortunately, in my experience, we humans are a little bit like sheep, right? We tend to see who's leading the flock, who are the biohackers, the influencers, who are the most whatever, the most cool, the ones who touch you the most. Nothing wrong with that. I'm also trying to do some of the same stuff. But what I encourage people to do is just to think critically. Because if the same person who was yesterday, they were passionately pro fasting, and today they're passionately anti fasting, doesn't mean that we shouldn't do the same. Thanks for the question, JMK2921. I'll get to it soon. So listen, so I think first we have to define our terms, right? So if we are talking about fasting, so there's the different terms that different people use. I use fasting for all of the following that I'm going to explain. So time restricted feeding or time restricted eating, which tends to be a daily schedule and a daily window. We'll talk about that in a second. And the second is an extended fast, more than 24 hours. And within the category of extended fasting, we have lots of different things: water only fasting, dry fasting. We have many other things. So I think we have to understand that those are slightly different tools for different purposes. So if someone is at their goal weight, do we even recommend extended fasting? Absolutely not. But if someone is at their goal weight, we might recommend an 18:6 or a 16:8 eating window. That's something to remember, right? That said, there are other things to take into account too. So one reason that we're using fasting is for weight loss, is for metabolic health and so on. But in my world, another reason that we're using fasting is for gut health specifically. So when we talk about the autoimmune disease and we talk about the immune system in general, what are we talking about? We're talking about a system whereby 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And most of us are exercising that gut muscle far too much. The gut is always on, it's never off, right? We eat, if you look at studies, people eat from the time they wake up to about half an hour before they sleep, or even just before they sleep, right? There is very little time, except for that sleep time, for the digestive system to rest. So what we encourage people to do is at least get into some kind of daily fasting routine. Again, that time restricted feeding, time restricted eating routine, so that they are giving that body the daily time that it needs to recover. Now, in the case of autoimmune disease, that may not be enough. We may need to do a longer fast for a couple of days, but those are temporary interventions that we have for specific purposes, again, for healing the gut, right? So for me, once someone is healed, I don't necessarily recommend prolonged fasting, right? And to JMK2921, to get to your question, it's all semantics, isn't it? Basically, if you are, and I've done a 5-day fast. One of my first interventions in this space on my own body, long before I started making videos and all that kind of stuff, was to do a 5-day fast. And what I will tell you is that for me, there's a very clear difference between a prolonged fast and starvation. And that difference is the body will tell you when something's gone wrong. So for me, day one of a fast was very, very difficult. This was a water only fast, except I was taking things like coffee, I think, too, but non-caloric beverages, right? So day one was difficult. Day one is always going to be difficult. Day two was easier. Day three was easier. Day four was like a breeze. But when I got to day five, something switched. And I felt the hunger pain. I felt something like, this is not right. I felt hormonally, I felt different. Like I wasn't as attracted to my wife as I was. Something was just weird. Like I think my sex hormones were getting tangled. I don't know what was happening exactly because I wasn't measuring it, but something happened. So that was just off, right? So that was my signal, because I'm not an idiot. I listened to the signal and I said, look, my fast is over. I'm going into starvation mode. I need to find a way to break the fast and break the fast in a healthy way, right? Breaking the fast in a healthy way is something we're going to talk about maybe in another session. But let's get back to this question about Atia and Rhonda Patrick and some of these other health influencers and why they stopped. So I think what a lot of these people did, and maybe some of my own clients have been in this too, we find an intervention that works for us when we're overweight, when we're having autoimmune flare-ups, when we're having serious issues, and we keep using that issue. We keep using that intervention just because we like it, because we got used to it. And I would suggest that that's not the way to do it. You're using an intervention not because you like it. You're using an intervention because it's to further your goals, right? Now, when you and so that's the first thing to say is that were these people choosing the intervention that was appropriate for them? Maybe not. The second thing to say is like the specific interventions that they were choosing. I'm not so familiar with Rhonda Patrick, to be perfectly honest, but Peter Attia has been very specific and very clear about what his protocols were. And a 5-day fast every month or every 2 months, like that is a 3-day fast every month, a 5-day fast every 2 months. That seems crazy to me, unless you are obese and you have a lot of weight to lose, and maybe there may be a reason for that in that point in that for that purpose. But to be doing 5-day fasts all the time, like it just makes no sense at all. Right? What is the logic? What are you trying to do? So I think these are specific personality types that were drawn to interventions that they did use when they felt like they had weight to use and they used it successfully, and they just felt like they had to continue using it for other reasons, including autophagy, which we know very little about, right? So I think we have to be very clear about why we're using the intervention that we're working, why it works or why it doesn't work. And in the case of Atia, again, he found that he was losing muscle mass. Well, that's pretty serious. If you're losing muscle mass, and of course you will lose muscle mass on an extended fast, but you're supposed to gain it back the days after the extended fast, right? So I think being very clear about what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it is going to be a super important part of any intervention. Okay, so what's my advice? Look, if you're new to intermittent fasting, don't be afraid to give it a try. It's a super useful thing to do, just also from the mental health benefits, being able to have the willpower to say these are the hours within which I eat and these are the hours within which I don't, right? So, and then when you break the fast, breaking the fast for me is more important than the fast, or it's as important as the fast, if you want to think about it that way. Why? Because when we break the fast with, say, cheap carbohydrates, potato chips or something, we're really setting ourselves up for super cravings, for failure, just for lots and lots of problems, right? So focus on those nutrient dense foods. Focus on a very small meal. If it's an extended fast, you definitely don't want to break your. I was talking with someone the other day who went to an all you can eat barbecue to break their fast, and then complained of like being out of it for 2 days. And I was like, yeah, that's to be expected. You can't do that, man. You gotta break your fast with a small nutrient dense meal. And that's going to be, it can be, I mean, we prefer things like egg yolks or, maybe a small, maybe some bone broth. It's going to vary from person to person, but those will give you the right egg yolks and bone broth. Those will give you the kind of right direction. Um, if you are suffering from autoimmune disease, then fasting has to be part of a broader strategy that includes healing the gut. I mean, for me, the main focus in the initial stages is really gut healing and lifestyle changes that will help that. Now, fasting is part of that. Fasting is not all of that, right? And you can subscribe to this channel and follow me, and we'll talk more about how to heal the gut in future weeks. And avoid those extended fasts, especially extended dry fasts, unless you have some pretty close medical supervision, right? I say this with a little bit of trepidation because it depends who the medical supervisor is. But there's no reason to be, I know people who are just basically following Atia's protocol because Atia was doing it, and they were doing 5-day fasts every other month. And then they came to me complaining of some or another ailment, and I was asking them, okay, why are you doing this? I know why Peter Atia is doing it because he's telling me very clearly what he thinks. But what do you think? Why do you think it's working or not working in your body, right? Don't look for fasting to be that quick fix for everything. It has massive benefits, but it's not going to heal everything overnight. It's going to be one of many tools we use to get to the destination, right? Cool. So let me know, have you tried fasting? Are you still fasting? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Let me know in the comments, or feel free to join. Let me just take a quick look if there's any more comments. Thank you, Professor Islam, a scientific explanation. Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.